Well, good morning, Veiled Church. It's so good to see all of you in the house here today. Can you all do me a favor really quick, and let's put our hands together and welcome those joining in online and also our Peoria location. Very excited that you are all tuned in with us and very excited about the message. We are in week 6 of a 7-week series called 7. And we're looking at 7 different churches that Jesus spoke to in a vision to John, and John penned this letter, and he wrote this to these churches. And some of these churches were reprimanded and then also commended for some of the things that they did right. But here in this church specifically that we're gonna look at today, they're not reprimanded for anything. They get all commendation. So this is a good, cheerful message. So I should see smiles on everyone's face, because this series has been tough, because these churches were really going through a lot, but I think it's relevant to us because I think we're going through a lot. So in case you're a visual person, I know I talked about how the letters would have traveled. I wanna show you what that looks like, and I have a graphic to do that today. But how many of you are visual people? Like, you have to see things to understand things. Good, me too. Let me show you what this would have looked like. So remember I said it was one letter that would have traveled to all of these 7 churches? Well, this is the way in which it would have traveled. It would have begun here in the church of Ephesus and then moved up to Smyrna, and then it would have horseshoed its way back around, reaching all of these churches here, and then all the way down to Philadelphia. Okay, and that's where we're gonna find ourselves today, the Church of Philadelphia. How many of you are Eagles fans in here? That's a good answer. That's a good answer. Well, I don't know if you saw, but next to the church, they were known as the Faithful Church. And I love that. And I love the opportunity to speak on that, because that's something that's meant a lot to me. You know, when I first began in ministry, or actually back up, when I was a teenager, I wasn't really good at a lot of things. Like, I wasn't a good singer, although I sang a lot in the shower. Anybody else do that? I still do it, and it's like I catch all this flack for doing it. Like, I don't know why the people at the gym just don't appreciate it when I'm singing in the shower. But I couldn't sing, I couldn't dance. Like, when I dance, it's funny, man. It looks fun. I'm 6'4", I got long, lanky arms. It looks ridiculous. So I can't sing, I can't dance. Academically, it was, I wasn't good at school. I played sports when I was like really little, but man, I'm just like I said, I'm tall, I'm awkward. I was really, really skinny, so you could just kind of push me around and do whatever. So like, I just didn't have a lot of talent and a lot of skill or a lot of ability. And because I didn't have a lot of talent or skill or ability, I didn't have a lot of hobbies. I didn't have a lot of things that like I really loved to do or that I was really bought into, because all of my life, like I didn't know what I was good at. And this became like a serious problem for me when I became a Christian, because I loved Jesus and I loved his church and I loved what he did for me, but I didn't know what I could do for him. I didn't know what I was going to have to offer to the kingdom. And I would come to church and I would see everybody else, and it was like everybody else had their place. Everybody else had something that they were good at. And that was just kind of like the story of my life. I would just look around and it was like everybody else was good at something and I just didn't really have anything. And so I would see the pastor on stage preaching and I'd be like, oh man, he's phenomenal. He can speak so good. I can't do that. And these people in the back, they're running slides and they're pushing buttons and they're making lights come up and lights go down. I can't do that. You got people in kids' rooms serving kids. I don't want to do that. Shout out to the kids team. Y'all are much appreciated, man. My son has learned so much about Jesus because of you guys. Thank you. But it was a struggle for me because I didn't know where I fit in when it came to the church. I didn't know what I had to offer God. And there's probably some of you, whether you're talented or not, whether you're gifted or not, where you've come to church and you've looked around and it looks like everybody else has their place. And you've wondered, where do you fit in? You've asked the question, what is it that you could bring to the table? God, what is it that you want from me? And if you've ever asked that question, you're a lot like me. And I came to an answer in which I was okay with. And it began from reading the book of Romans. And if you know anything about the book of Romans, it's a theological letter. So he's really kind of explaining what it means to be a Christian. And it's all predicated on one thing. So let me read that to you. In Romans 1, verse 17, it says, the good news, which is a story about Jesus, tells us how God makes us right in his sight. This is accomplished from start to finish by, everybody say this word with me, even in Peoria, faith. Faith. As the scriptures say, it is through faith that a righteous person has life. So your walk with God is predicated on one thing, and it's not your good behavior. It's not the name that you think you've built for your family and your community. It's not that. It's not how good you look, or how good you play basketball, or how well you can sing. It's predicated on one thing, your faith. And then I read Hebrews 11. And Hebrews 11 is what changed my life, because it says this. Hebrews 11:6, it says, and it is impossible to please God without what? Faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. So you as a Christian depends on the amount of faith that you have and how faithful you are to that faith, because here's the truth, is he says it also depends on how sincerely you seek him. And so in looking at my life, I said, God, I don't have a whole lot of things that I could give. I might not be the most talented. I might not be the best singer, the best dancer. I'm not the best looking, although clearly that has changed. But God, I could do this. I could do this. I can be faithful to you. I can be faithful to what you're asking me to do. God, if you ask me to forgive somebody who I really don't want to, God, I can be faithful and I could do that. God, if you're asking me to love people that are hard to love, God, I could do that. God, if you're asking me to serve the poor and the marginalized and the broken, God, I could be faithful. And here's the deal. It was like God was asking, will you be faithful? That's what I felt like. Will you be faithful? And you know what my answer was? It was, yes, I will. Say that with me. Yes, I will. Say it again, a little more louder. Yes? Yes, I will. Thank you. You don't have to yell at me. But yes, I will has been just a reoccurring theme in my life. God, yes, I will. Whatever it is you're asking me to do, yes, I will. Sometimes it takes me longer to get to that answer. But ultimately, at the end of the day, everything in my life, I want my answer to be whatever God is asking me to do, to be, yes, I will. That's what I want for my life. And so this is the Church of Philadelphia. Their answer was, yes, I will. Whatever it is, no matter what we're going through, God, we will be faithful. And their situation was a lot like Smyrna's. Remember Smyrna, the persecuted church and the rejected church? They were excluded by the Jewish people from the synagogues. Even though they were close to Sardis, they were much like the church of Smyrna. And so they were facing horrible situation, but they were faithful amidst the situation. So amongst the situation. So let's go ahead and look at what Jesus says to the church of Philadelphia. Revelations chapter 3, verse 7. It says, to the angel of the church of Philadelphia, write, these are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. Let's just pause right there. I want to show you something. He says this, these are the words of him who is holy and true and who holds the key of David. Now, I want you to understand something. When he would have said this, this would have made a lot of sense in every Jewish person's mind that was hearing this. Because the moment he said this, who holds the key of David, it would have brought images from the prophet Isaiah a long, long time ago, or in the book of Isaiah, about a man named, a king named Hezekiah. Shout out to my son. And he had two servants. King Hezekiah had two servants, Shebna and Eliakim. Shebna was next in line to receive the keys of the kingdom, which means he would have all authority, he would have all access, he would have all rights and privileges of the house of David, of that kingdom. But Shebna was unfaithful. And because Shebna was unfaithful, Shebna was skipped over. And the blessing and the authority and the access and the rights to the house of the key of David went to the one that was faithful. And you got to understand something in context. This would have made sense because the Jewish people were not faithful to Jesus. And they had kicked out the Christians who were, shutting the door on them. And back in Isaiah, King Hezekiah says, when I give this to you, Eliakim, whatever door you open in this kingdom, no one will be able to shut. So the way John is setting this up right here, the way Jesus is setting this up right here, is he's saying those Jewish people might have kicked you out and shut their doors on you, but once God opens up a door for you, there's not going to be anybody that's going to shut it. And I don't know if you've been in church for a really long time, but you need to write this down if you don't remember this. And if you're brand new today, here's what I want to tell you, is that God opens doors that no one can shut. That's good news. I need to hear an amen for that. God opens up doors that no one can shut. God's put a ministry in your heart, and it doesn't make sense because you don't know how you're going to get started on it. God's opening a door that no one will be able to shut. God's put a dream for you to reach. God's put you in a secular world and given you promotions and opened up doors for a reason, to be used for his glory. And when he opens those doors, not you, no one can shut them. And the key to this is your faithfulness. To the one who is faithful gets the keys, and the one that gets the keys, God opens up doors that no one can shut. So it's faithfulness. It depends on your faithfulness. And I want you to notice where the position of the door is in verse 8. Let me show you this. It says, I know your deeds. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. He says this, he says, I have placed before you. I have placed before you, in front of you, ahead of you. See, there's a lot of people in here that you think that because, and you know, there's some of us that are just getting older. It's just part of life. Getting a little bit older. I'm not looking at anybody. I'm just saying. You're getting older, and you might think that God is done with you. You might think, you ever heard that term, that saying, I missed my window of opportunity? For people who are faithful, you don't miss your window of opportunity. God's opened the window wide open, and it's in front of you. You still have a purpose. God still has something for you in your life. Maybe you're young and you feel like you've messed up your past. Your past is too broken. That you've messed up these years, and now God can't use these years ahead of you. I want to tell you that if you just begin to be faithful, God will place a door in front of you, ahead of you. And when he opens it up, no one's going to be able to shut it. So just start by being faithful, and it doesn't matter your condition, because look, Jesus notices their condition. He says, I open the door for you that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength. That's a condition. There's a lot of us in here that have probably walked in today with little strength, little left in the tank. We feel like we've been trying, like we've been giving our all, but we just can't get it together. God, I've given my kids to you over and over again, and they keep making the same mistake. God, I'm barely hanging on. God, my marriage, we just can't get it together. We keep fighting. We're barely hanging on. And you got little strength left. But for this church, their condition didn't hinder their commitment. And that's something important, because I would say this, that culture would define it differently. Culture would say that your condition does determine your commitment. It would say that when it's not pretty or perfect, or does it make you happy, that it's no longer a commitment. But that's not how Christ would define it. In fact, if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. Condition does not determine commitment. Condition does not determine commitment. So culture, like I said, the way culture would define it is a lot like my golf game, okay? Don't laugh. Don't laugh at me. When I tee off, every time I get on the tee box, I have one commitment, and that's to get this ball into a tiny little hole at the end of the course, whatever. You're like, this is probably why he's not good. But that's my commitment. And something happens every time I hit the ball. I hit the ball perfectly. My swing is perfect. My form is perfect. There is nothing wrong with me. But for some reason, when I hit the ball, it goes like this. Like real high and then always to the right. I don't know if it's like the way the earth spins or the equator or volcanic, magnetic. I don't know what it is. It can't be me though, because I'm hitting it perfect, I swear. But every time I tee off, it will land somewhere where it's not supposed to land. It'll land in the weeds or the trees or the bushes. And something happens the moment it does that. Because all of a sudden, I am no longer playing towards my commitment. I am playing to get out of my condition. I don't think you guys are getting this. When I end up in a place in life where I am not meant to be, all of a sudden, I forget about the commitment in the end, and I'm just trying to chip away and get myself out of my current condition. And one time, I was like, I was playing at Highland, I was by myself, and I landed behind some trees. And like literally, there was a tree about 9 feet in front of me. And the pin was directly behind it, about 200 yards. So it's still a long way away. And I said, if I could just get 4 inches to the right side of this tree, I should be okay. The trunk is this big. So I step up with not full confidence, I was scared, I'm not gonna lie. And I swing, pow. The moment I hit the ball, everything went into slow motion. It was like, boom. And I watched this, like, has that ever happened to you? Like something, like the ball was not going that slow, but it looked that slow to me. And it was like flying directly back at my face. So like, I get ugly. Like, you know, like when you get scared, sometimes you just get ugly. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like, I'm like, no. And I go like this. And the ball hits my hand and I go rolling over it. I didn't know, but there was 2 guys about to tee off who were watching me roll into the bushes. But you know what we need? We need more Christians that will play towards their commitment, that are less concerned about their condition. That will step up and say, God, I know it's just a couple of inches. I know it's gonna be tight, but I'm still gonna swing away at it. I'm still gonna keep to your word. I'm still gonna be faithful, because when I open a door, God is saying to you, when I open a door, I'm gonna move the trees. I'm gonna remove the obstacles. Whenever I put a door that's in front of you, swing away, because I'm gonna remove everything out of the way, and no one's gonna be able to shut this door. No one's gonna be able to shut this door. Your condition should not determine your commitment, and so often, here's what I see, is that I see that it does. I see that it does. Because I know that there's people in here that you hear us talk about baptism all the time. You're like, I should do that, maybe someday. Maybe one day when my condition is right. Maybe one day when I stop living the way that I'm living, I'll do it. Or maybe one day once all my family gets here and I got all the aunts and uncles and great cousins and everybody's lined up, then we'll do it. And it's based on a condition. You're waiting on something to change. Maybe it's sharing your faith. For some of you, you won't share your faith because you're scared of a question, right? You're scared somebody will say something back that's more intelligent than you, or they'll ask you a question in which you don't know. And you're like, once I get enough knowledge, once I get it, once I know enough, how's that working out? Because I've gone to school for this and I still feel like I don't know enough. At least not enough to be comfortable all the time. Some of you are waiting on your time, your condition of time to change to be in community. Let me talk to Peoria for just a second. Peoria. I know Pastor Matt is doing a bonfire. Well, he's not doing it, but the women are doing a bonfire this coming month. Have you signed up for that yet? If not, what is holding you back? Jesus wants you to be in community with people, and this is why we do these events. We don't just do it because Matt loves fires, although he does love fires. What are you waiting for? You're waiting for more time. How's that working out? I don't know about you, but I feel like for the last 15 years, I can't get a hold of any time of my life. I can't grasp any of that. For some of y'all, it's with money. And listen, I'm not trying to step on your toes here today. I'm just saying, if I am stepping on your toes, it's because your toes are in the way. You're waiting on your financial condition to change so that you can become faithful to the God who changes everything. Does that make sense? You're waiting on that. Do you see where that's off? Let me show you why this is backwards. Your condition doesn't determine your commitment. Your commitment will change and determine your condition. God said, if you are faithful in little, you will be faithful with much. Before you get much, you got to learn how to deal with what you got. And if you can't be faithful to Christ in that, you can't expect more. And if you want more, if you want a door to be opened in your life, then you got to be faithful now. Right now, today, listen, and some of you are in here, you haven't even given your life to Christ because you're like, man, I'm skeptical. I need the pastor to answer all the right questions first. I need him to explain some things to me. Or you're like, man, I need to agree with everything. Like, here's my checklist. They got to agree with this, with this, with this, with this, with this. And if they agree with everything that I believe, listen, I would never go to a church where they agreed with everything I believe. You know why? Because I believe some weird stuff sometimes. You're waiting on a condition to change instead of starting now today. Let me read to you 2 Corinthians 6:2. It says this, for God says, at just the right time, I heard you. On the day of salvation, I helped you. Indeed, the right time is when? Say it. Today is the day of salvation. Today is the day you need to say, God, yes, I will. Today is the day you start to be faithful. What you feel right now going on inside of you is not me making you feel lousy. It's God moving in you, saying, I've been stirring something in you. Let's get started today. Let's do this today. Verse 9, I'm taking a lot of time. Let's keep going. I will make those who are in the synagogue of Satan. Now listen to this language. He sounds a lot like the church of Smyrna. He says this, I will make those who are in the synagogue of Satan who claim to be Jews, though they are not, but are liars. I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. Since you have kept my command to endure patiently, I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come on the whole world to test the inhabitants of the earth. That's a pre-tribulation verse right there. If you believe in pre-tribulation, that's a verse they hinge on, is that God will keep you from the hour of testing of the earth. I am coming, hold on to what you have so that no one will take your crown. I want you to notice something. He says this. He says, hold on to what you have. So this is a church that's been faithful. They've done right. They've done everything right so far. They've been faithful to love each other. They've been faithful to forgive. They've been faithful to endure. They've been committed to God and His word and not forsaking Him. They have been faithful so far, but it's not over yet. It's not over yet. He says you still have to hold on to what you have, which means there's still more to come. There's still going to be tests and trials to come. In fact, here's why he says you have to hold on to what you have. He says so that no one will take it. Because whenever you have something valuable, there'll always be someone that wants to take it. If you don't believe me, watch Despicable Me. He's always trying to steal the diamonds or the moon. And whenever there's something of value, if you don't believe me, go and open your house. The next time you go on vacation, open your garage doors and your front door and leave out your credit cards and all your jewelry on the table. And tell me how comfortable you feel. You wouldn't, because you know someone would want to take it. And here's what I'm telling you, is that if you're in here and you've been faithful, we know, God knows. God's watched. Maybe you haven't gotten all the recognition you deserve. You've been showing up. You've been serving in kids. You've been serving in guest services. You've been serving in the parking lot, and people might not have commended you or given you all the attention you deserve, but God knows. But He's saying you're going to have to hold on to it and keep being faithful, because there will be people that will try and take it from you, that will try to test your faithfulness. You will have relationships in the future that will test your faithfulness to God. You will have friendships in the future that will test your faithfulness to God. You will have family members that will test your faithfulness to God. You will have bosses and organizations that test your faithfulness to God. You will have culture. You will even have your own insecurities that will test your faithfulness to God. So you have to hold on to it. You can't let it go. And listen, you're going to have, some of you are just going to have to remind yourself when you're going through a season that I might not have what it takes, but I can still be faithful to Jesus, no matter how hard it is for me to forgive that person who I hate. No matter how hard it is for me to love those people, no matter how hard it is for me to get up off my couch and get into a group, I could be faithful, Jesus. And sometimes the seasons will be rough. I just went through a season myself, and I had to keep reminding myself that, God, I can still be faithful to you, no matter what. Let's finish this verse. Here's what I'm going to close with. It says this. It says, the one who is victorious, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. Never again will they leave it, and I will write on them the name of my God in the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which is coming down out of heaven from my God. And I will also write on them my new name. Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Pull that verse back up again. Here's what he says. He says, the one who is victorious, I will make a pillar. I want you to see the progression of this passage and the sequence in which it flows. He started with, for those who are faithful, I have keys and I open up doors. So watch this, check this out. Here's how it looks. When we are faithful, God opens up doors. He opens up doors for us. Ministries, relationships, things you'd have never imagined you'd have or see in your life, God will do it. I promise you, God is faithful. If you're faithful. When we are faithful, God will open doors. But watch this. When we remain faithful, God makes us pillars. Unmovable. And I want you to understand this. When any person in the first century church would have heard that God would make them a pillar, they would have imagined or seen the giant pillars in front of the ancient buildings. And you can go Google it on your own time. But there's, in front of these temples, there were these big, beautiful, beautiful pillars. And they would make it look so gigantic and gorgeous from the outside because it would be the first thing that people would see. You gotta understand why this is important, because in a city where pagan worship is accepted and there's all these other temples that worship other gods, it was just like, where do we want to eat dinner tonight? People would just go into whatever they saw, whatever first caught their eye. And so the new temple that's coming, God says, I'm gonna make you a pillar. You're gonna be the first thing that people see before they see my temple. And you're gonna be a representation of my temple. And my temple isn't made of all these glorious things. Listen, inside the temple, do you know what they said about Jesus when he was here? Isaiah 53 says he was nothing to look at. In fact, let me give you a passage really quick. In Philippians 2, 5 through 8, it says this. It says, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. If you want to know what's on Christ's mind or what his mind was like, how he thought, this is it. Verse 6, who being in the very nature of God did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing. Nothing, the King of all kings, the Lord of lords. He made himself nothing. And he took on the very nature of a servant. Being made in human likeness and found in the appearance of man, he humbled himself and he became obedient to death, even death on a cross. Listen, what's inside the temple isn't beautiful. It's nothing. It's humble. It's obedient. It's a servant. And this is what Jesus was. And when Jesus was this, watch what God does. In verse 9, it says this. It says, therefore God exalted him to the highest place. I don't want to exalt myself in life. I don't want to climb the corporate ladder. I want God to exalt me. I want God to lift me up. You got to be humble. You got to be a servant, and you got to be obedient. He says, and I gave him a name above every name, that at that name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Listen, when you become faithful, God lifts you up. God exalts you, and he opens a door for you. The church doesn't need more people that know how to perform well. They don't need more perfect people or pretty people or people that like to have everything perfectly put together or that their life looks all good. The church needs to be filled with some pillars. With some people that will be faithful, people that aren't scared to be servants, people that aren't scared to be humble. God said, I just need you to be faithful regardless of your condition. Listen, if you're in here today, regardless of your condition, regardless of what your bank account looks like, regardless of how your kids are acting out, regardless of the struggles in your marriage, regardless of how your company is treating you, regardless of all of the situations you got going on in your life, if you just be faithful, You will see that I will open up doors. Listen, I struggled when I was 23, feeling like I had nothing to offer God. Nothing that I could give to him that would please him, nothing that would benefit or grow the kingdom, and I was so insecure. I let all the words of my critics get to me. I let all the words of my voices in my head get to me. I let everything get to me. And you know what happened? God said, I just need you to be faithful. You might not think I haven't given you anything, but you just wait, because one day I'm going to give you a microphone. And when I give you a microphone, I need you to be a pillar. Because it's not about you, it's about me. So I need you to stand up there and I need you to be humble. I need you to be a servant. If you want to be a pillar, if you want to represent me, then you have to be humble. So I don't know where you are tonight with your walk with God, but here's what I'll tell you, is that God doesn't make pillars out of beautiful things. He makes them out of broken things that are faithful. Not out of the self-dignified, out of the dirty that know that they need him. Not out of people who are proud, who think they can do it all, but out of the humble who realize they can't do anything without him. This is who God makes a pillar. So, if God is asking you today, will you be faithful? Your answer should be, yes, I will. Yes, I will. Say it again with me. Yes, I will. God, I don't sing the best, but yes, I will. I don't want to lift my hands, but God, yes, I will, because you deserve to be praised. God, I don't have enough money, but yes, I will. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. And my same answer back then is my same answer today. And here's what I'm telling you. All of you are here today for a purpose. And if you would just step into being faithful, God will open up a door. And when God opens up the doors for you in your life, no one can shut it. Not your critics, not your insecurity, not your condition. God is faithful. So you be faithful to God. Yes, I will, God. And watch God move in your life. Let's pray. I know there's some people in here today that don't know Jesus and they've been waiting. Your walk with Christ depends on your ability to be faithful and your faith. So here's what I would say is that if your answer today would be, yes, I will, God. I might not have it all together. My life might be in pieces. My marriage might be falling apart. Everything in life might be really messed up right now, but God, I can be faithful. The answer just has to be, yes, I will. And you will see God open up doors in your life that you never, ever imagined. And for the rest of us in here who've been following Jesus, but on the fence, we've been cherry picking the Bible and just applying certain things to our life, knowing that God has called us to give us life and life abundantly in all areas. God, I pray that our answer would be, yes, I will to you today. I might not have done it before in the past, but God, I will start today. Yes, I will.